Emma had felt something shifting inside her for months, but she never had the courage to name it. The feeling wasn't anger or disappointment, it was something quieter, deeper, something that grew slowly in the empty corners of her days. It was this strange loneliness that appeared even when she wasn't alone. She and her husband, Daniel, still lived under the same roof, still shared the same bed, still stood in the same kitchen every morning drinking coffee. But somewhere between responsibility and routine, the spark that once filled every part of their life had dimmed. She didn't blame him entirely, and she didn't blame herself either. Life had a way of draining color from things without warning. But tonight, looking at the stillness of their home, she felt the truth settle heavily in her chest. She couldn't keep pretending everything was fine. She couldn't keep hiding her feelings behind polite smiles and routine conversations. The sun was falling behind the Seattle skyline, leaving a warm golden glow in the kitchen. Emma stood near the counter, her hands gripping the cool edge, steadying herself. She watched Daniel sitting at the table, finishing his last email of the day. He looked tired, worn from long hours at work and endless deadlines. She used to rush to him the moment he walked through the door, and he used to wrap her in his arms as if she were the only piece of peace he had. But now they exchanged quick hellos and tired smiles. Even their laughter, once effortless, had grown rare. Emma closed her eyes for a moment, forcing herself to breathe. She had rehearsed the words again and again, yet they still felt heavy on her tongue. "Daniel," she said finally, her voice soft but steady, "I need to talk to you." He looked up instantly. Something in her tone made him straighten. She wasn't angry, but she wasn't casual either. He felt a shift in the air, subtle but real. "What's wrong?" he asked quietly. Emma walked closer, but she didn't sit. She didn't want anything between them, not even a chair. "I've been feeling distant," she began, "and it's been hurting me more than I knew how to admit." Daniel's eyes narrowed slightly, not in annoyance, but in confusion. "Distant how?" She swallowed. "This was the hardest part. Distant from you," she said. "From us." He sat back slowly, absorbing her words. The room felt still, as if everything had paused to listen. Emma continued, her voice trembling just a little. "I don't need anything dramatic or complicated. I'm not asking for something impossible. I need more connection, more time, more presence, more affection. I miss how we used to be. I miss feeling like you saw me." Daniel exhaled, rubbing his forehead. "I didn't know you felt this deeply about it." "I didn't either," she whispered. Not until the silence started hurting. She wasn't dramatic by nature. She didn't ask for attention, didn't demand affection, didn't push him to do things he didn't want to do. She had always been patient with him, especially during the years when work overwhelmed him. But patience had turned into distance, and distance had turned into emptiness. Daniel shook his head, guilt washing over him. "Emma, I never wanted you to feel alone with me." "I know," she said gently. "You've never tried to hurt me. But sometimes neglect feels almost the same as heartbreak." Her words weren't meant to wound him. They were meant to be understood. Daniel stood up, hesitating before reaching for her hand. His hesitation startled her more than anything. They had once touched each other without thinking. Now, even a simple gesture felt uncertain. "I'm sorry," he said, voice low. "I thought we were okay." "That's what scares me," she whispered. "We stopped noticing that we weren't." His shoulders fell heavy with the realization. "What do you want me to do?" he asked. "I'll do anything." "I just need us to try again," she said. "To not let our marriage run on autopilot. To not let the days pass without checking on each other. I want to feel close to you again." Daniel nodded slowly. "I want that too." For a brief moment, Emma felt a small wave of relief. Maybe he understood. Maybe he truly heard her. But before she could continue, soft knock echoed through the front door. They both turned. The knock was unexpected, too gentle to be urgent, too familiar to be from a stranger. Daniel frowned, slightly confused. "Were you expecting someone?" Emma shook her head. "No, you." No. The knock came again, still soft, almost polite. Daniel glanced at Emma one more time before walking to the door. She watched him disappear into the hallway, her heart still aching from the conversation she had just opened. She leaned back against the counter, taking deep breaths, reminding herself that the hardest part was done. She had finally spoken her truth. Daniel opened the door and froze for a second. Standing on the porch was Michael. Emma heard the name before she saw him. "Hey, man," Daniel greeted, sounding uncertain. "This is a surprise." Michael stepped into the warm light of the living room. He wore a relaxed smile, the same easygoing expression he'd always had. Emma walked into the hallway and her eyes widened slightly. Michael had been their friend for years, someone they once saw every weekend. Someone who had lived only a few blocks away before moving out of town for a job. He had recently moved back to Seattle. They hadn't seen him properly yet. He held a small envelope in his hand. "I found something," he said, smiling at Emma. "Thought you'd want it." Emma took the envelope carefully. Inside was an old photograph, one she hadn't seen in years. It was from a cabin trip they all took together a long time ago. She and Daniel were in the picture, arms wrapped tightly around each other, laughing as if nothing in the world could come between them. For a moment, the room grew painfully quiet. Emma stared at the photo, her throat tightening. She looked so happy in that picture, bright eyes, warm smile, complete comfort. And Daniel, younger and more carefree, held her like she was the most important person in his life. Michael noticed the silence, glanced between them, and though he didn't ask, he seemed to understand more than Emma wanted him to. "Everything all right?" he asked gently. Emma forced a smile. "Just talking." Daniel nodded, trying to hide the heaviness still hanging in the air. Michael didn't push further. He never did. He simply offered a small nod of understanding before leaving. He said something that lingered long after the door closed. "People only ask for more when they still care. Don't forget that." The moment the door shut, Daniel's expression changed. Something in Michael's words had struck deep. He turned toward Emma slowly, his eyes settling on the photograph still in her hand. "I remember that day," Daniel said softly. Emma nodded, looking at the picture again. "We were so young, and so in love," he added quietly. "I wrapped you in my jacket because you were freezing." She laughed lightly. "You were freezing too." He smiled, a small, tired smile, but a real one. "I didn't care." For the first time in a long time, they shared a moment that felt real, gentle, fragile. Emma held the photograph to her chest. "I miss this version of us." Daniel stepped closer, careful but sincere. "I want to find that version again." She looked up at him, searching his face, trying to believe him. "Then we'll have to fight for it," she said softly. "Both of us." "I will," he promised. And yet, as she stood there, still holding the old photograph, a small voice inside her whispered a question she wasn't ready to say aloud. Would love be enough this time? The soft click of the front door closing echoed through the quiet house, leaving Emma and Daniel standing in a sudden, uneasy silence. Michael had left, but the weight of his words lingered in the air like a gentle warning. People only ask for more when they still care. Daniel's gaze met hers, full of emotion, and for the first time in months she felt a thread of hope tug at her heart. Maybe they could reclaim what they had lost. Maybe love, if nurtured carefully, could grow again. Daniel stepped closer, his movements deliberate, as if testing the fragile boundaries that had formed between them. Emma still held the old photograph, a snapshot of the happier version of their marriage. And she felt the contrast between then and now keenly. The photos showed two people completely in sync, laughing and carefree, while in real life they had stumbled through months of quiet distance and missed connection. Yet holding that picture seemed to create a bridge, a reminder of what was possible if they were willing to try. "I want to do better," Daniel said quietly, his voice full of sincerity. "Not tomorrow, not eventually. I want to start now." Emma looked up at him, searching for any hint of hesitation. She found none. Instead, She saw the same warmth and care that had drawn her to him years ago. "I want that too," she whispered, her voice shaking just enough to reveal how deeply she had missed this intimacy. It wasn't physical, at least not in a way that needed words. It was emotional. The kind that comes from being truly seen, heard, and valued by someone who knows every part of you. They moved closer, closing the space between them that months of routine and silence had created. Daniel reached for her hand, and this time she didn't flinch. Instead, she allowed herself to be held, letting the simple contact remind her that she wasn't alone. It was small, yet powerful. A gesture that carried the weight of promises and the potential of a new beginning. Emma took a deep breath, feeling the tension in her chest start to ease. She remembered the nights when they would sit for hours talking about everything and nothing. When their laughter was spontaneous and effortless. Those days had seemed endless back then. And now, in the quiet of their living room, she realized how much she had yearned for even a fraction of that connection again. The spark of longing was no longer a silent akit, had become a call to action. "Okay?" And Daniel was answering. "I don't need perfection," Emma said softly. "I just need you. Just us." Her eyes glistened with unshed tears. But this time they weren't tears of sadness. They were tears of hope, of longing finally met with attention and care. She had been craving connection for so long that even a small gesture of commitment felt monumental. Daniel nodded, understanding more than words could convey. "I'm here," he said simply. "I'm not going anywhere. I'll fight for this every day, Emma, even on the days that aren't easy. Even when life tries to pull us apart again." His words were honest and deliberate. They carried the weight of reflection and accountability, showing that he had considered the gap that had formed between them and was willing to act. Emma felt her heart swell, a mixture of relief and lingering fear. Could they truly rebuild what had eroded? Could love withstand the quiet neglect of the past months and come out stronger? She wanted to believe it could. She needed to believe it could. As they stood there, hand in hand, the house around them seemed almost magical. The golden light from the sunset had shifted to a softer, warmer glow, bathing everything in a comforting calm. It was the kind of moment that felt suspended in time, a pause between the old mistakes and the new possibilities. Emma closed her eyes briefly, imagining that this could be the start of something that felt like home again, not the house they lived in, but the home of their hearts intertwined. Daniel tightened his hold gently, as if to reassure her without needing words. "We can start small," he suggested. "Little things. More dinners together, more conversations. Maybe even revisiting the places that meant something to us before." He smiled, a tentative but hopeful expression, the kind that reflected a man willing to step outside his comfort zone for someone he loved. Emma nodded. "Yes, I think that's what I've needed all along. To feel noticed, to feel like us again. Not just in memories, not just in photos, but in reality, every day." The photograph she still held seemed to glow in the soft light, reminding her that what they had shared wasn't lost, it had simply paused. They had been through seasons of change. Life had demanded attention elsewhere. And in that process, the emotional closeness had faded. But seeing the photo and standing together now, Emma realized that love wasn't about constant perfection. It was about choosing to be present, choosing to care even when life grew heavy, choosing to acknowledge the other person in small, meaningful ways. Daniel lowered his eyes for a moment, collecting his thoughts. "I forgot sometimes, I think," he admitted. "I forgot how important it was to show up, to be there for you in ways that matter. I thought providing and working was enough, but I see now it's not. It's the presence, the attention, the little moments. That's what makes us strong." Emma squeezed his hand. "I've always known you loved me. But love isn't enough when it's silent. I needed to feel it. I needed to feel you." Their connection, fragile as it was after months of distance, started to rebuild in that quiet room. There was no dramatic confession, no sudden emotional explosion, just two hearts quietly realigning, finding the rhythm that had been missing. And in that moment, Emma realized that the small efforts could make a world of difference. Love wasn't always grand gestures. Often it was the attentive look, the lingering touch, the words spoken softly that reminded each other of their importance. A gentle smile spread across Daniel's face. "We'll make it work," he said, and the conviction in his voice reassured Emma more than anything else. She felt a wave of gratitude, not just for his words, but for the fact that he had listened, really listened to what she had needed. The vulnerability she had shown could have been met with indifference, but instead it was met with care and intention. That mattered more than she could express. Emma set the photograph down on the table. A symbolic gesture of leaving the past in view but choosing to move forward. "I want to believe that we can be like that again," she said, nodding toward the picture. "Not exactly the same because we've grown, but with the same love and connection." Daniel leaned in slightly, brushing a strand of hair from her face. "Better," he whispered. "We can be better because now we know what matters." For the first time in a long time, Emma felt a lightness in her chest. The heaviness of loneliness and longing had been replaced by cautious hope. The journey wouldn't be instantaneous. She knew that. Life would still bring challenges, distractions, and obligations. But standing there, looking into Daniel's eyes, she felt a renewed commitment not just to the idea of marriage, but to the reality of partnership, to the work it required, and to the love that had never truly left. They sat together after a while, just talking quietly, recounting memories, laughing softly, and sharing plans for small moments of togetherness. It wasn't an elaborate or rushed attempt at rekindling, but a deliberate, thoughtful reconnection. Each word, each laugh, each shared glance was a stitch in the fabric of their renewed bond. As the evening deepened and the golden light faded into the soft blues of night, they realized that intimacy wasn't just physical, it was emotional, mental, and spiritual. It was the unspoken understanding, the willingness to listen, the choice to care deeply every day. And in that understanding, Emma felt a warmth she hadn't realized she had missed so profoundly. Daniel felt it too, the reassurance that despite past missteps, they were committed to the same goal, to rediscover the love that had brought them together. Emma leaned against him slightly, her head resting near his shoulder. "Thank you for listening," she said softly. "For wanting to try." Daniel kissed the top of her head, a gentle gesture full of meaning. "Thank you for telling me what you needed," he replied, "for trusting me with it. I promise, this time I won't take it for granted." They remained like that for a while, quiet but connected, letting the comfort of presence speak louder than words. Outside, the city lights twinkled softly through the window, reflecting their private moment of reconciliation. The path ahead wasn't guaranteed to be easy, but it was theirs to walk together deliberately, with hearts open and minds aware. Yet, as much as hope filled the room, a subtle question lingered at the back of Emma's mind. Could they sustain this renewed closeness when life inevitably demanded attention elsewhere? Would they remember to keep showing up for each other when the days grew busy and routines returned? She didn't voice it. She trusted Daniel's commitment. But the awareness added a quiet tension beneath the warmth of their moment. It was realistic, human, and entirely natural. Love, after all, was not a static feeling. It required constant attention and care. They turned off the lights one by one, leaving only the soft glow of the night outside. Hand in hand, they moved toward the bedroom, a small act that felt symbolic of unity and partnership. Emma knew that every day moving forward would require effort from both of them. Small moments, consistent gestures, shared attention. These would be the pillars of their rekindled connection. But for now, in the quiet aftermath of a long conversation and an unexpected visit, they allowed themselves to simply exist together,